Dr. Vegapunk's plan was set in motion the moment his heart stopped beating. In the recording, Shaka told him to speak slowly so that people all over the world would have time to prepare. After this news was broadcast, it would surely spread everywhere, but they still had to be prepared for the worst-case scenario. All over the world, people had now begun to hear the voice of the genius scientist. Vegapunk's plan was to use marine branches around the world as relay stations. The words they spoke would be forcibly broadcast at maximum power, which is why even if the Marines tried to turn off the equipment, the voice still echoed. On the island, Sanji also heard those words through his headphones. He asked Vegapunk what was going on but received no answer. The two opponents being held by Luffy were extremely angry, while he smiled confidently, having subdued Kizaru and Saturn. Hearing Vegapunk's voice, Luffy thought he was still alive and was very happy. Conversely, Saturn was extremely worried about what the scientist would say to the world. High above, the remaining members of the Straw Hat Pirates were confused about what had happened. Nami and Usopp thought Dr. Vegapunk was acting recklessly. If so, it would ruin their rescue plan. No one had realized that their friend had died, so the recording was automatically played. Back with the giant pirates, Brogy and Dorry were trying to run as fast as they could to Luffy. They knew something was about to happen and felt very excited. Below, the Marines were still ambushing, trying to stop them. However, with Brogy and Dorry's massive size, the Marines were like mere insects. Everyone trembled before these two. Looking at the fools below, the two giant warriors praised their courage. Unfortunately, that wouldn't change anything. A barrage of cannon fire was then shot by the Marines. The explosion was huge, but Dorry and Brogy were completely unharmed. At this point, the soldiers below realized that this was not an opponent they could defeat. Just like that, the axe and sword of the two giant warriors struck down. After just one blow, all the Marines below were defeated. The two captains then continued to search for Luffy. Currently, Dr. Vegapunk's broadcast has not encountered any problems. He decided to take 10 minutes to let people all over the world prepare, so they could clearly hear what he was about to say. Luffy looked excited after hearing this. He thought that now he just needed to deal with the two opponents in front of him, and the whole crew could leave safely. The scene shifts to Mary Jiwaz. At this moment, the broadcast that Vegapunk had prepared was making the 5 elders of the government worried. They communicated with Saturn, asking what was happening. He replied that Kizaru had just killed Vegapunk. Guessing that the message left by the genius scientist would turn the world upside down, these 4 wanted to find the broadcast source and destroy it before things got out of control. They guessed the broadcasting device was protected inside the shield at Egghead. There were 9 minutes left before the truth about the world began to be revealed. However, all over the world, people had already started gathering to listen. Dr. Vegapunk's fame made everyone curious about what he wanted to convey. In the kingdom that Luffy had once rescued from Doflamingo's evil rule, Princess Rebecca was as beautiful as ever. She and her father were watching the broadcast when Leo and Cub arrived. Before that, they heard that Luffy had taken this scientist hostage, but Rebecca didn't believe that information. She knew that Lucci, who had saved her and this kingdom, was not a coward who would take someone hostage. Hearing this, Leo also agreed. Her father realized that Vegapunk was broadcasting voluntarily, not under orders from the government. The truth about the world that the genius doctor spoke of still has to wait for him to tell it himself. The scene shifts to Luffy's hometown, where everyone is also waiting for the latest news. They even thought Luffy had done something bad again. In the places where the Straw Hat Pirates passed through, everyone was preparing to wake up to listen to the broadcast. In the sky, Princess Vivi was on reporter Morgan's hot air balloon. He explained that this broadcast was being relayed through naval branches. But it was an independent signal, so it couldn't be interfered with. Based on the time in the image, Morgan realized that this was not the current time on Egghead, but had been recorded beforehand. This would become world-shattering news, and reporters all wanted to write about it. Vivi was worried about Luffy and his crew, hoping they wouldn't be in any danger. In Usopp and Chopper's hometown, everyone was watching the screen. At the same time, on Okama Island, the Revolutionary Army, especially Ivankov, was very curious about Dr. Vegapunk's head. It looked like it had been cut off, but he was still alive. Other members like Sabo were also curious about the truth of the world in Vegapunk's words. He asked Dragon if the genius doctor would really reveal the truth of the world. He said that some geniuses can even see their own future. Vegapunk had predicted that he would die, so he left this recording. Back to Bonnie and Kuma, they were safely brought back to the ship by their giant friend. The father was still unconscious, with no signs of recovery. Atlas only showed Frankie the giant ship, something they had never seen before. As soon as the two captains returned, they would set sail immediately. Now, the task was to gather all the other members of the Straw Hat crew here. Inside, Luffy was still provoking his opponent. He said that Saturn's punches just now had no effect at all. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Admiral Kizaru attacked, but Maine dodged. He said that, until the very last moment, all his friends would escape from here. So, he wouldn't let them go anywhere. He used his ability to stretch his arm, then slammed Saturn and Kizaru's bodies together with a powerful blow. As a result, the two were flattened by Luffy as thin as a sheet of paper. Not stopping there, he even used his fingers to perform. The bodies of the two enemies were now as soft as a pizza. Luffy then used great force to throw Kizaru and Saturn away. After the fight, he returned to his original size and laughed loudly at his victory. On the coast, the group of Marines discovered something flying towards them. In the next second, Admiral Kizaru's body collided with the ship, causing it to explode. Saint Saturn was luckier, not colliding with anything. He was angry that Luffy had thrown him again. With his ability, Saturn immediately returned to attack. Luffy was also shocked to see this. Under Saturn's new attack, he had to find a way to escape. He didn't understand why his opponent wasn't injured, despite being hit so many times. As for Admiral Kizaru, he was fine, but what pained him was that he had personally killed Vegapunk. Sadly, Kizaru could only cover his face to hide his emotions. In the sky, Luffy's chase was still ongoing. The rulers reminded Saturn that there wasn't much time left. They didn't want Vegapunk's words to affect the world government. Luffy was attacked continuously, but dodged them all. He fell to the ground, but was unharmed. His opponent also landed safely, looking at the captain with terrifying eyes. Saturn knew he couldn't deal with Luffy alone, so he used his ability to summon 4 others from the Holy Land to help. Just like that, the strongest began to act. The sky there turned black again. Lightning bolts struck down, just like when Saturn appeared. Luffy witnessed this scene, not knowing what was happening. Sanji, nearby, looked worried about the captain. The Straw Hat Pirates' worst nightmare has begun. Out at sea, the Navy saw large lightning bolts striking the center of the island. Some soldiers witnessed it firsthand and believed the phenomenon was identical to how Saint Saturn had landed on the island earlier. Nearby, a giant archer was still firing numerous arrows at the Navy's warships, each arrow the size of a mast, making them incredibly powerful. Another giant warrior took the opportunity to jump onto the remaining ships to destroy them all. Inland, the group of giants was excitedly heading towards the center of the island, with dangerous lightning flashes before them, signaling that Luffy needed help. Even Frankie's group had to stop, worried about their friends. Luffy, at this moment, looked surprised, not understanding what had happened, as 4 extremely dangerous dark shadows appeared around him. Sanji exclaimed that something unusual was happening in this place, and therefore they had to leave as soon as possible. At this point, Dr. Vegapunk's recording was still ongoing, broadcast live from Mary Joy's, and it was known that no one could stop this live broadcast. However, the current appearance of the 4 leaders of the world government has put Egghead at risk of destruction. Saturn was continuously attacking Luffy, but he kept dodging. The dark shadows behind him began to reveal their true forms. Seeing this, Luffy was deeply shocked, thinking they were 5 giant monsters. Frightening sounds emanated from within the thick smoke. Luffy stood there, waiting to see what would happen next. In his mind, he felt as if he was being swallowed by the darkness of the 5 monsters. One by one, the different forms of the 4 newly summoned beings appeared. These are the forms of the rulers at the head of the world government. The 5 monsters including Jupiter in the form of a sandworm, Marcus Mars in the form of a bird, Warcury in the form of a pig, Nusjuro in the form of a horse, and finally Saturn in the form of a spider. When these 5 monsters appeared together, destruction had begun. Their roars pushed Luffy back. The buildings also could not withstand it, and collapsed. With his abilities, Luffy easily escaped the rubble. However, standing before him was the massive body of the enemy. At the start of the battle, just the 5 monsters walking past Luffy forced him to dodge. These are the supreme judges of the world government. If this continues, the entire island will be destroyed. Luffy demanded that they stop. He then enhanced his body, transforming into a giant form to fight. However, Saturn used a special skill, an attack with his gaze, to defeat Luffy. Just like that, his large body shrunk back to its original form. Nusjuro then, with incredible speed, jumped over Luffy, and Luffy was also thrown far away by the pressure. With his speed, he reached the battle on the coast, where the pacifistas were still attacking the Navy warships. The damage was immense, which is why Nusjuro had to rush to help. He transformed into a centaur and used a sword to attack. The high-speed slash instantly froze the pacifista's body. This ability is somewhat similar to Brook of the Straw Hat Pirates. Just like that, a series of cyborgs were neutralized by Nusjuro, unable to function. His movement speed was so fast that Navy soldiers couldn't even see what was happening. In this way, the world government faction was able to retain all the pacifistas so that the damage would not increase. The battle on the coast was considered over as the cyborgs had part of their bodies frozen. The soldiers at this time also saw the giant horse form, but Nusjuro disappeared immediately afterward. Inside, Luffy was blown away once again by Marcus Mars. At the same time, Sanji had contacted Nami and Robin. He didn't know how to explain what was happening below, warning of a great danger approaching them. He asked them to escape immediately, and the giant bird also separated to do the same work as Nusjuro. The Marines were happy to regain the upper hand, as they could now avoid unnecessary battles with the cyborgs. The Vice Admiral ordered everyone to quickly find Bonnie and destroy the Straw Hat Pirates. Above, after flying to the shield, the giant bird let out a cry signaling that something bad was about to happen, and Sanji was also trying to run back to regroup with his teammates. He said that an extremely dangerous monster was flying towards them, so they should retreat immediately. Even Sanji had become a target of lightning attacks. Nami was worried that the remaining members had not yet arrived, and Usopp then heard a loud sound coming from behind him. Along with that was Lilith's scream, and Chopper wondered what was happening. Just then, their sunny ship rushed out, shocking the 3 friends, while Brook was still happily enjoying the thrill of the ship speeding away. Lilith begged someone to stop this. Back to Luffy's battle in his Sun God Nika form, Saturn began to feel annoyed as his opponent easily dodged his attacks. Seeing this, Jupiter stepped in to help, trying to swallow Luffy, but he still escaped. Luffy realized that his opponent was an earthworm that could hide underground, and because he couldn't predict where Jupiter would appear, he was thrown into the sky. Just like that, Luffy fell into the mouth of the giant monster. The scene then shifted to the beach, where only a few cyborgs were still active. However, they were soon defeated by Nusjuro, and the giant bird turned its body into fire and plunged straight into the protective shield to find Vegapunk's broadcast device and destroy it. Inside, Usopp still didn't realize this and contacted Sanji, saying that Brook and Lilith were temporarily there with them and the sunny ship. Brook confidently said, "See, I told you it would be fine," and Lilith scolded him for saying that when Usopp was the one who stopped the ship. Before that, when the sunny ship rushed over, he used a type of bullet that grew trees to stop the ship, and they were also planning to leave according to the original plan. However, Zoro was still fighting, and Jinbei was going to call his teammate back. Sanji was angry when he heard this, and he asked Jinbei about the situation there, and he said he understood the situation. Even if their battle is not over, I will force Zoro back. Hearing this, Sanji was somewhat relieved. At the same time, the two powerful warriors were still competing. Lucci continuously used speed to attack, but Zoro still blocked it. His opponent ran around, creating a smoke screen to obscure his vision, and then launched a powerful kick that cut down all the surrounding trees. Zoro also responded with 3 continuous slashes, and as the two sides rushed at each other, they suddenly felt someone extremely powerful attacking this place. In contrast to Zoro's uneasy feeling, Lucci was extremely excited, realizing that it was one of the 5 leaders of the world government. In the next slash, Zoro let go of his sword, and both sides seemed tired, as they couldn't decide a winner. Lucci thought that Zoro was distracted because he felt the terrifying haki, which was covering the entire island. Jinbei had arrived at this point and saw the battle between the two, and Lucci continued to attack with long-range moves. Zoro had to dodge, so he was approached by his opponent, and the battle was still very balanced, with neither side at a disadvantage. Jinbei informed Sanji about this, which annoyed him, as he thought Zoro was putting the entire crew in danger, calling Zoro useless without realizing that he had heard it. Zoro, fueled by his anger, wanted to unleash a finishing blow in the next move. Lucci completely failed to notice the change in his opponent and continued to charge in to attack, but even after throwing hundreds of punches, Zoro still dodged them all. He built up momentum and slashed with all 3 swords, and in that moment, Lucci realized he was the loser. Zoro successfully cut through his opponent, causing him to collapse, and Jinbei was incredibly surprised to witness this. At the same time, Luffy had fallen into the monster's belly. He tried to escape, but was bitten by the earthworm's teeth. Fortunately, he was still able to escape. Luffy said he didn't taste good, so don't eat him like that. As soon as he finished speaking, Saturn controlled Luffy and slammed him straight towards Warcury, and just like that, Luffy's head collided with the head of the giant pig. Once again, he was swallowed by Peter. Fortunately, Brogy and Dorry were present at this time. Hearing Luffy's cries for help from inside the earthworm's belly, the 2 giant warriors rushed in to attack. Saturn and Warcury also stood up to compete, but Dorry and Brogy easily fended them off. In terms of strength, they were not inferior. The 2 giant warriors then threw the 2 monsters directly at each other. They continued to rush towards Peter and unleashed their ultimate move, cutting the earthworm into 3 parts. Thanks to this, Luffy was freed, which made him very happy. After seeing the 2 old giant men, Luffy also greeted them, as it had been a long time since they had met. Dorry said we couldn't stand by and watch the Straw Hat Pirates in danger, so we came here. Dorry and Brogy were relieved to see Luffy still healthy. It had been 2 years since they last met, so both were overjoyed. At the same time, Marcus Mars successfully infiltrated after crashing straight through the shield. He wanted to stop Vegapunk's live video broadcast. Below, Jinbei couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the giant creature. The bird's haki was so terrifying that even he was afraid. Therefore, he had to quickly bring Zoro back and leave this dangerous island with the other crewmates. Jinbei asked Zoro to follow him, but he refused. Lucci, despite having 3 slashes, had not yet fallen. Just by looking at his eyes, Zoro knew he could still fight. The opponent then turned to look at the 2 of them, just as Sanji contacted to ask if he had taken Zoro away yet. Jinbei immediately held his crewmate tightly, telling him that he had won and didn't need to fight anymore, while the opponent slowly approached. Seeing this, Jinbei used Fishman Karate to attack Lucci, a move used to create a diversion and give the other 2 a chance to escape. After transforming back into his human form, Lucci was surprised that Marcus Mars was here. He asked his subordinate where York was. Zoro, being led away by Jinbei, also wondered what the giant body of the monster was. And as for Lucci, facing the question from his superior, he showed fear. He then stated that York was still being held in the control room on the 4th floor, Building A. The two who just escaped were Roronoa Zoro and Jinbei, the Son of the Sea, and there were 5 other members of the Straw Hat Pirates here as well. They and 2 other Vegapunks were preparing to leave through the back exit of the laba phase, and in the basement of the laboratory, there were still 85 Cypher Paul agents and 4 Seraphim. Vegapunk's broadcast would continue in another 6 minutes. Hearing this, Marcus Mars seemed very satisfied with this useful information. He praised Lucci for doing a good job and said he had no more questions. Before letting him leave, Lucci had a request. It was about his severely injured crewmate in the control room. Please, spare him. Marcus Mars said that was very difficult. Insects are sometimes crushed, even if one has no intention of doing so. This extinguished Lucci's hope of saving his crewmate because, after all, they were just insects in the eyes of the Gorosei. Back with Luffy, he felt that the 2 old giants were as strong as ever. They said they almost didn't recognize him, and that the Straw Hat crew must be the ones who changed the most in 2 years. Brogy asked why Luffy knew about the legendary Elbaf god's form. They were truly happy to see this form. Luffy said he didn't understand what he was talking about, but to talk about it later because they needed to deal with the 2 monsters first. After being attacked by the 2 giants, Saturn and Warcury had fully recovered. They considered the 3 to be an unpleasant combination. In Dorry's eyes, the 2 monsters in front of them were as large as the wild beasts in the Elbaf forest. Luffy reminded his 2 friends, saying that his crew didn't want to fight anymore, so they should find a way to escape. Dorry agreed, because, in fact, they had just met Sanji, who had relayed the entire plan and asked them to come here to take Luffy away. Brogy said that after reading the news about their group in the newspaper, they came here to help. The newspaper wrote that Luffy was a villain, had taken Vegapunk hostage, and was surrounded by the Marines. Hearing this, even Luffy chuckled. He didn't expect the newspaper to write such a thing. Currently, the members of the Straw Hat Pirates were separated, so they had to quickly regroup and leave this place. To inform everyone, Dorry blew a large horn, making the sound echo across the island. On the coastline, after hearing the horn, the other members of the giant pirate crew recognized it. Their captain had met Luffy, so there was no need to fight anymore. Before leaving, they also mocked the Marine soldiers below, saying that even if they attacked the Marine battleship, there would be no treasure to steal. Inside, Warcury was unhappy to realize that it was a signal to retreat, and he also wanted to issue a warning so that no one could escape. The giant pig snorted and roared, the deafening sound accompanied by hockey power, forcing the 2 giants to use their shields to block. The entire island was shaking violently, and the weaker Marine soldiers were knocked unconscious by the hockey. Even the giants were affected by this roar. Luffy, not hiding behind the giants' shields, bore the full brunt of the pressure Warcury created. His body began to stretch comically, to the point where his 2 eyes and the scar on his chest flew off his body. Witnessing this scene, Dorry and Brogy were so shocked they couldn't believe their eyes. Everything on Luffy had been blown away by the wind, leaving only his pants. He cried out, but showed no pain, asking his 2 friends to pick up his 2 eyes to put them back. Dorry immediately used his sword to catch the things Luffy dropped. He then retrieved everything and put them back on his body as if nothing had happened. Brogy asked if Luffy was okay. He just smiled and thanked them. Luffy said he was fine, then stretched his face like rubber to prove what he had just said. Dorry laughed loudly, thinking his body was very funny now, while Brogy admitted that Luffy was much stronger than before. And now they had to face the one who created the roar of Conqueror's hockey before they could leave. Warcury looked at the 3 of them and called them insects. Luffy told his 2 friends that the one in front of them was an arrogant member of the world government. The opponent said that to ensure Luffy would not return to his original form, he would chop him into pieces. With that, he charged to attack, and Dorry and Brogy immediately had to use their shields to block. The pig's fangs had turned into sharp blades. If the 2 giants hadn't stood to block the attack, Luffy's body would have been cut into many pieces. When asked if they knew who the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates was, The two giants replied in unison that Luffy was their friend. Immediately after, they used their strength to knock the beast away. Saturn then stepped in to take over the attack position, saying he didn't care about the relationship between insects like them. He wanted to erase Luffy from world history forever. Saturn spat out highly poisonous balls towards Luffy, who reminded the two giants not to touch them. He himself pulled up a nearby coconut tree to create a baseball bat to block. Using his imagination, Luffy used his teeth to shape the bat. Then he painted another layer of paint to make the bat shiny, and he also put on the hat with the number 56. As soon as the poisonous balls flew over, Luffy used the giant bat to perfectly hit them all away, even saying, "I'm returning these poisonous balls to you." Warcury and Saturn were hit, causing a huge explosion. Luffy was very surprised, not expecting it to explode so loudly. But this was their chance to escape. The other crew members warned that the flames were spreading closer, so they had to leave immediately. Brogy and Dorry thought the two monsters had exploded into smithereens, but Luffy explained that they were immortal beings and couldn't die. Even though he had tried everything, they still recovered, and they had never heard of such an ability or race. It was best to run away now before something worse happened. At the same time, Usopp's group was struggling to pull the Sunny out of the pile of trees, but despite using all their strength, they couldn't move it even a little. Nami looked at this scene with a bit of worry. "I don't know when I'll be able to leave here. Robin still needs rest, while Jinbei has brought Zoro back. Since the flying device ran out of energy, he switched to running on his own feet to be faster. On Bonnie's side, she is still running towards the giant tribe's ship. Kuma shows no signs of waking up due to severe injuries, and Atlas then warns about those standing in front of the ship, blocking their way. These are the three Marine Vice Admirals tasked with eliminating Bonnie. Sanji, on the other side, is also racing against time. He has a bad feeling about what's about to happen. Vegapunk's broadcast is still ongoing, and seeing this, York, who is tied up below, doesn't understand what they are trying to do. She demands to be uncuffed, but she can't, and at this moment, York's cry helps the giant bird discover her. Marcus Mars asks where the room on the screen that Vegapunk is showing is, and York, completely unaware of who this is, shows fear. The scene shifts to Admiral Kizaru, who is still lying on the ship. When asked where his injury is, he says this: "I have a very deep wound in my heart, but no one needs to do anything. Just let me rest." Inside the island at this moment, the giant robot has fully awakened. Although his body is very old, he still stands up and calls out, "Joy Boy." The spear that was stabbed into him is pulled out, and right below, some Marine soldiers are still chasing the members of the giant pirate crew. However, they have to stop because they can't believe their eyes. There is something much larger than the giants. This scene is seen by the entire Marine faction from a distance. The burning flame cannot stop the giant machine's advance. As he moves, he apologizes to Joy Boy. The situation on the island was utterly chaotic. Frankie's group was blocked from escaping by the Vice Admirals, while Sanji was trying to get Vegapunk's body to safety. On the other side, Nusjuro continued to take down the last active cyborgs. His speed was so great that the pacifistas, even after detecting their targets, couldn't react in time to attack. Seizing the opportunity, the Marines mobilized their entire force to bombard Egghead Island once more. This time, their goal was to wipe out the entire area, leaving the Straw Hat Pirates no escape. Nusjuro never expected that Bonnie, a mere 12-year-old girl, would be entrusted by Vegapunk with enough power to destroy an entire nation. He considered the doctor a foolish traitor. Meanwhile, the remaining giants had begun to return to their ship. The order from the Gorosei was to sink the Elbaf ship to prevent anyone from escaping. Cornered, Bonnie was forced to fight to protect Kuma. The first to engage the Vice Admiral was Frankie. His opponent possessed a steam-powered arm, but Frankie's steel arm was stronger, and he quickly defeated his foe. Immediately after, another Vice Admiral targeted Bonnie. The girl asked the accompanying giant to take care of her father, then plunged straight into battle. When her opponent called Kuma a weapon, Bonnie's anger erupted. Using her devil fruit power, she transformed him into a child. The Vice Admiral tried to beg for forgiveness, but Bonnie, who was also just a little girl, didn't hesitate to teach him a lesson he wouldn't forget. As she attacked, she shouted, "My father is a hero! Take back what you just said." Atlas also quickly rushed in to assist, delivering a punch that sent the third Vice Admiral flying. She asked where Luffy and the others were. If they hadn't arrived yet, the group would have to temporarily retreat. However, Frankie suggested defeating all three Vice Admirals before their comrades arrived. Despite being defeated, the Vice Admirals were still seasoned warriors with astonishing resilience. The scene shifted to Marcus Mars. With his colossal body, he terrified York to the point of tears, constantly begging for her life and crying out, "I don't taste good. Please don't eat me." Marcus Mars angrily roared, but the girl continued to cry. Finally, he broke her shackles, freeing York to calm her down. Then, Marcus Mars asked York to take him to the room appearing on the screen, where Vegapunk was broadcasting the video. Since York was also one of Vegapunk's clones, she must know the location. Having no other choice, Marcus Mars used his massive beak to grab York's body and flew off. Meanwhile, the video Vegapunk had prepared was still playing. However, he had not yet revealed the most important thing, perhaps waiting for the right moment. Shaka asked, "Aren't you having coffee?" Vegapunk replied calmly, "I'm very sensitive to hot things." Only 4 minutes remained before he would reveal the truth about the world. At the same time, Marcus Mars had brought York to a room that looked exactly like the one in the video. She confirmed, "This is it. They filmed here." Hearing this, the giant bird opened its mouth, blowing out a powerful stream of fire, incinerating everything around. He believed that if he destroyed everything, Vegapunk's broadcast would be cut off. York frantically rushed to stop him, shouting that destroying this place was useless, because the video was still playing, proving the transmission device was not here. She began to deduce if she put herself in Vegapunk's shoes, he would surely hide the original device somewhere safer. But if Marcus Mars continued to wreak havoc, the consequences would be extremely serious. She warned that the second floor of the building was the weapon deployment area, the first floor was the energy plant, and the third floor was filled with high-pressure gas cylinders. If those exploded simultaneously, all of Punk Records will be blown away. Hearing this, Marcus Mars asked York to think of a solution. She nodded, saying that she would end this stupid broadcast immediately. Just then, Marcus Mars suddenly sensed a sound coming from a small creature. Most likely, the snail messenger. This proved that the room containing Vegapunk's original recording was very close. He immediately asked York to take him there. Meanwhile, inside another building, Stussy could finally breathe a sigh of relief as the giant monster had spared them. She realized that the giant bird was one of the 5 elders, Gorosei. Her teammate beside her also trembled, gasping for breath and joking awkwardly. "Were you abandoned?" Hearing this, Stussy just gave a faint smile. "No need to pity me. I voluntarily stayed to finish the last task." Elsewhere, Nami's group received news that they had to leave Stussy behind. Edison explained that there was no other choice, as someone needed to lower the shield just as the ship escaped. The Frontier Dome system could only be deactivated from the control room, and Stussy had voluntarily taken on that task. Everyone could only accept it. "The best way to thank her," Edison said, "is for all of us to get out of here together." Edison reassured her, "I have calculated everything. This ship will fall straight to the ground, but we still have a chance to land safely." Upon hearing this, Nami and Chopper burst into tears, while the other members announced that the propulsion system was ready. They just needed to wait for Zoro and Jinbei to return. Then they could all jump into the sea. However, Chopper was still worried that this wouldn't be enough to reach the sea surface. Edison laughed, thinking their ship was troublesome. But he also added, "It's that determined spirit that creates miracles. I'm just a scientist, but I believe in you all." He guaranteed that the ship would land safely on the water. After saying this, Lilith suddenly realized something and quickly tried to stop him, but Edison was determined. He immediately flew towards the shield, despite the desperate screams of his friend behind him. According to his calculations, upon impact with the shield, his body would suffer 78% damage. "That's not enough to kill me," Edison said. As soon as he touched the shield, a huge explosion rang out. Those who witnessed it could only stand frozen in shock and pain. Outside the coast, a strange phenomenon was occurring. All the Navy warships were suddenly pulled strongly towards Egghead Island. The reason was Jew Peter. He continuously sucked everything around him into his body. The terrifying suction force made Dorry and Brogy unable to move, and even Luffy, in his Sun God Nika state, was held tight, unable to budge. In this critical situation, Luffy quickly thought of a way. He grabbed Brogy's arm, using the momentum to fly straight up. Nearby, he discovered a building just large enough to stuff into the giant sandworm's mouth. Luffy cut the building in half, lifted it with his muscular form, and shouted, "If you're hungry, eat these buildings!" After saying that, he threw the giant concrete block straight into the opponent's throat. The attack, with terrifying power, made the monster collapse on the spot. Thanks to this, the three of them had a chance to continue fleeing. However, using too much strength caused Luffy's body to return to its old man state. Brogy asked in surprise what had happened. Luffy gasped, saying that he had almost run out of energy from food. Hearing about food, the two giants remembered that they had brought some fermented shark, the emergency food of the giant race. Its smell was so strong that Luffy grimaced, but to regain his strength, he still decided to eat it. Dorry laughed and said, "Once you get used to it, you'll find it delicious." Indeed, after just a few bites, Luffy's body fully recovered, becoming as strong as before. Seeing this, Dorry laughed and said, "Your body is so simple. Just eat, and you're strong again." But their joy was short-lived. Warcury, with the body of a giant pig, caught up with them. Brogy warned Luffy to stay away, but he chose to stay and fight. "Once I'm full, I'm not afraid of anything," Luffy shouted, then leaped high, activating Gear 3rd, creating a giant fist to attack Warcury. The terrible collision stunned Warcury, but Luffy also screamed in pain. The pig's body was as hard as steel. The two giants, seeing this, urged, "Retreat! Don't let these monsters catch up." At the same time, in the research area, Lilith was silently expressing her sorrow for Edison. However, they had no time to grieve, because, at that moment, Saturn suddenly appeared, putting everyone in danger. Below, Bonnie's group had finally defeated the three vice-admirals. The accompanying giant invited them onto the ship, but the very next second, he was slashed by Nusjuro's sword. His sudden appearance left everyone frozen in fear. The scene shifts to Vegapunk's secret room. Thanks to York, Marcus Mars finally found his way there. As expected, the original Den Den Mushi was there. Marcus Mars let out a cold laugh, saying that Vegapunk's luck had run out, then raised his arm, preparing to destroy the device immediately. Speaking to the whole world for the first time made Vegapunk a little flustered. However, the waiting time was over, so he calmly began his speech. Meanwhile, Marcus Mars discovered something astonishing. The world's greatest brain was being stored right here. Even though Vegapunk's original body had died, the brain continued to exist. It contained all of humanity's knowledge, and its current size was as large as a building. While Marcus Mars was distracted, the transponder snail tried to crawl away to escape, but it was too slow and was still caught by him. In the video playing, Dr. Vegapunk said that many people might not believe what he was about to reveal, but this broadcast would surely make the whole world listen and unite. The scene shifted to the East Blue, Usopp's hometown. There, children were intently listening to stories about Dr. Vegapunk, the person who had created countless great inventions that changed the world. Although they couldn't see his image, they could hear his voice transmitted through the radio waves, and everyone was curious to know what the secret of the world was. Vegapunk also made significant contributions in the field of medicine, so he had a profound global influence. At this moment, The Marines were trying their best to stop the broadcast, but the signal continued to spread everywhere. In a distant sea, the whale Laboon surfaced. On its massive body were intricate scars and the familiar skull symbol of the Straw Hat Pirates. In the future land, Vegapunk's hometown, everyone was intently watching the screen, eagerly waiting to hear what their genius scientist would say. For the people there, Vegapunk was a great source of pride. A child wondered, didn't he cause the nightmare in Baltimore? The old man next to him shook his head, gently explaining that it wasn't Vegapunk, but Frankie, who had transformed his own body into machinery. In the South Blue, where Chopper once honed his skills, the island residents also received news about Vegapunk. They discussed him, the father of modern science, who contributed to the creation of countless advanced weapons. Meanwhile, on Hachinosu Pirate Island, the situation became chaotic. Everyone's attention was drawn to the broadcast. Everyone was eager to know, what exactly is the secret of the world? Back in the laboratory, Marcus Mars crushed the transponder snail to cut off the broadcast. But what he didn't expect was that Vegapunk had anticipated this. That snail was just a fake. The broadcast continued as planned. Marcus Mars was furious at being tricked, immediately transformed into a giant bird, and flew off, determined to find the real live broadcasting device. Around him, the scene was only ruined buildings, with no trace to identify the broadcast location. The next scene shifted to where Luffy and the two giants were trying to escape. Behind them, Warcury was still relentlessly pursuing. No matter how many times it was defeated, the monster recovered, as if it had never been injured. Warcury contacted Marcus Mars, asking if he had found the broadcasting device yet. The giant bird replied that Vegapunk had hidden it too well. The Gorosei began to worry. If things continued, all the world government's secrets would be exposed. Marcus Mars swore he would find it, but needed more time. Saturn urged him to quickly destroy the device, but Marcus Mars said that Vegapunk had prepared very carefully, so it couldn't be easily disconnected. They didn't know exactly what Vegapunk intended to say, but York had revealed that he had taken over Ohara's research. Hearing this, Warcury and Saturn thought he was seeking revenge for the Ohara tragedy of the past. Meanwhile, Sanji was still trying to get Vegapunk's body to safety. Suddenly, he sensed Bonnie was in danger and immediately changed direction to help. Zoro declared that he would not let Bonnie get the Marine's weapons, but Frankie resolutely stood up to protect her. Just then, Sanji appeared and plunged into the battle. Zoro's sword slowly rose. In a dangerous moment, Sanji kicked to block the blow, then counterattacked with a powerful kick to the chin, making his opponent spit blood. He declared, "No one is allowed to hurt her." Flames raged fiercely around Zoro's body, but he did not stop. Zoro transformed into a giant horse, biting Sanji tightly. Vegapunk's body fell, fortunately caught by Atlas in time. Bonnie worried about Sanji, but could do nothing. The two below continuously dodged the terrifying stomps from the giant horse. Fortunately, Oimo and Kashi appeared just in time. After realizing that the other group were allies of the Straw Hat Pirates, they immediately rushed to assist, holding Zoro's body tightly so Sanji could escape. However, the opponent's strength was too great, causing even the two giants to struggle. Seeing this, Bonnie transformed into a giant form, joining them in battle. Zoro transformed back into human form, continuously slashing with his sword, but Bonnie, with the advantage of her giant size, did not flinch. During the broadcast, Vegapunk admitted that he had committed 2 major crimes, so he might be arrested or executed. That's why he recorded this video and set it to play automatically when his heart stopped beating, which meant he was dead. The news stunned the whole world. Everywhere, those watching were shocked. 2 former colleagues who had tried to overthrow Vegapunk also couldn't understand why he chose this path. Vegapunk said that no matter who executed him, he would not consider them evil. In Nami's area, the Straw Hat crew was facing Saturn. His giant and terrifying body made everyone panic. Saturn asked them to get out of the way, because he didn't want to waste time. Lilith and Brook rushed over, calling on everyone to stop the monster. Chopper tried to take Robin to safety, but she refused, determined to stay. In Robin's mind, the voice of the one who had ordered the destruction of Ohara still echoed. The opponent quickly recognized her as Nico Robin, the last survivor of Ohara, and the one Akainu had failed to kill. Nami was surprised, not understanding why the opponent knew Robin's past so well. Lilith explained that he was one of the 5 elders. The giant monster immediately attacked Robin, forcing the others to take the blow. Nami ran to carry Robin away, while the remaining crew members unanimously declared, "No matter what happens, we will definitely protect her." Meanwhile, Luffy was still fleeing from pursuit. Warcury asked Marcus Mars about the broadcast location, but he still hadn't found it. Jew Peter was also searching all over the ground without finding anything. No one expected Vegapunk to cause so much trouble. Off the coast, Navy warships continued their fierce bombardment. The entire island was on fire, but nothing could stop the broadcast. Vegapunk said that his statement might make many people laugh, but nevertheless, everyone had the right to know the truth. In another room, York was trying to find the broadcasting device. She was confident that, since she was also a Vegapunk, she would soon find it. However, too many fake transponder snails had been set up beforehand, making it impossible for Marcus Mars to distinguish the real ones. When someone suggested destroying the power plant, Saturn immediately objected because it would cause immeasurable consequences. Finally, Vegapunk delivered a conclusion that shook the entire world. All continents on Earth would be submerged to the bottom of the sea. That statement silenced everyone. The Gorosei were collectively enraged, while people all over the world could only watch in stunned silence.